The cosmos had never faced a threat as terrifying as the hunters. This ancient race was larger, faster, and technologically superior to most species' wildest imaginations. For centuries, they had ravaged the stars, subjugating entire civilizations and feeding off the terror of weaker races. To them, the universe was merely a vast hunting ground, with each planet offering a fresh chance for supremacy. The hunters adhered to a straightforward doctrine: the strong prospered, while the weak existed solely to be devoured. They flourished in the chaos they unleashed, their power unrivaled. Their weaponry was brutal, their tactics straightforward. Over time, they had decimated species once thought invincible, their fleet slicing through defenses like a knife through butter. They reveled in their position as apex predators, unchallenged for centuries, encountering no species that invoked fear. Then, reports trickled in about a new species emerging from an unremarkable corner of the galaxy: humans. They were small, primitive, barely out of their own star system, and inexperienced in the realm of interstellar warfare. The hunters initially paid little attention to them, viewing humans as just another minor annoyance, another weak race to be added to their long list of conquests. But whispers surrounding humanity piqued their interest, a species that rose rapidly, adapted swiftly, and never backed down. Thus, the hunters decided that humans would be their next target. News spread among the hunter fleet that humans would be an easy prey, a fleeting thrill that was hardly worth the effort, but nonetheless enjoyable. Their technology was laughably inferior, their fleets a disorganized collection of ships. This would be no challenge, just another straightforward victory to add to their ever-growing list. One veteran hunter commander, known for his ruthless efficiency and experience in countless wars, volunteered to lead the hunt. He was certain that humanity would fall swiftly, just another conquest in a long history of effortless victories. He saw no need for caution. What could these humans possibly do against them? As the fleet advanced toward human territory, their arrogance only swelled. They spoke of the hunt as if it were already concluded, certain that humans would crumble just like all the others had. The commander dismissed any notion that humans could pose a threat, scoffing at the idea that such a fledgling species could put up any significant resistance. "They are barely more than animals," he derided to his officers. "This will be over quickly." However, humanity was not as oblivious as the hunters assumed. The leaders of the humans had been aware for some time that they were being monitored, that a dangerous predatory force was nearing their borders. They had received distressing reports from other species who narrowly escaped extinction at the hands of the hunters. While the humans lacked the brute strength or technological prowess of their adversaries, they possessed something else: resilience and ingenuity. In secret, the humans had been preparing, studying their foes closely, and analyzing every scrap of intelligence they could gather. They learned the patterns, the weaknesses, the overconfidence of the hunters. They constructed defenses and devised strategies not to confront their enemy head-on, but to exploit their weaknesses. Humanity understood they could not match the hunters in sheer force or firepower, but they intended to fight on their own terms. When the hunter fleet entered human space, weapons primed, they expected immediate surrender. To their astonishment, the humans did not flee in terror nor scramble for peace. The human response was curiously calm, almost unsettlingly so. To the hunters, this was a sign of weakness, an indication that the humans were oblivious to the impending doom. In reality, the humans had meticulously prepared for this moment. Their fleets, though smaller and seemingly weaker, were strategically positioned, having set traps that anticipated every move of their adversaries. As the hunter ships penetrated deeper into human territory, their confidence soared. They saw no indication of a challenge ahead. The calm demeanor of the humans was misinterpreted as fatal ignorance, another indication that the upcoming battle would be quick and decisive. But beneath that calm exterior, the humans were poised and ready, knowing their enemy well. They had studied the hunters' tactics, counting on the fact that the hunters would underestimate them. The stage was set for confrontation. While the hunters believed they were the hunters, it was humanity that had truly laid the trap. As the moment of battle approached, tension thickened while the hunter fleet prepared for what they believed would be an easy victory. The human fleet, appearing fragile and underwhelming, waited in formation. Blinded by their own hubris, the hunters had no idea what awaited them in the ensuing conflict. The hunter fleet surged forward, their ships a swarm of death and destruction, armed with firepower beyond human comprehension. They anticipated a quick victory, Human defenses appeared scattered, disorganized, and fragile, seemingly no match for their relentless advance. Colony outposts, transport vessels, and even the occasional battle cruiser crumbled beneath their overwhelming might. Explosions echoed through space as they closed in, firing with merciless precision. To the hunters, humanity was just another species to conquer, another footnote in their long history of dominance. Yet, something was amiss. The humans were retreating, not in the panicked frenzy the hunters had witnessed in previous encounters. Their ships were slipping away, evasive and elusive. Hunter fire missed its mark more often than not. Targeting systems recalibrated endlessly, but the results didn't improve. The human vessels, though slower and smaller, danced just out of reach. Frustration mounted in the hunter commander's fists as he realized this battle should have been over by now. As the initial assault continued, cracks appeared in what had seemed like an unstoppable hunter advance. The humans weren't fleeing. They were repositioning. Suddenly, the human counterattack began. It wasn't the desperate brute force resistance the hunters were accustomed to. It was calculated and precise. Human ships struck with stealth, targeting the hunter fleet from unexpected angles. Decoy signals flooded their radar, leaving the hunter fleet in pursuit of shadows. What had begun as a crushing assault transformed into a nightmare of confusion. Hunter ships found themselves caught off guard, struggling to locate the real threats amidst the decoys. Ground forces expecting an easy slaughter faced ambushes in tight corridors and sprawling urban landscapes. Human units hit swiftly and then vanished into the labyrinth of their cities, utilizing terrain to their advantage. The hunters were used to ruling through fear, their overwhelming displays of power typically sending enemies into chaos. But these humans fought differently. Their movements were methodical, designed to induce confusion rather than merely resist, and it worked. The hunter commander sensed that his fleet had never encountered such fierce resistance from a supposedly inferior species. Even more infuriating was humanity's ability to strike at critical points. Hunter warships, while formidable, were not invincible. The humans had learned precisely where to hit. Precision strikes disabled key systems. Communication arrays fell silent. Engines sputtered to a halt, and entire sections of their mighty ships were cut off, floating lifelessly in space. This was no ordinary prey. The hunter forces regrouped, anticipating a fierce pushback from the humans. But what came next was even more devastating. Now fully coordinated, the humans launched an assault that shattered the hunters' morale. With expert timing, they deployed EMPs that scrambled hunter systems across multiple ships, leaving significant portions of their fleet blind and vulnerable. Hunter ships drifted aimlessly as human forces cut through them with surgical precision. The massive technological advantage the hunters had always relied upon was evaporating. As the fleet reeled from the EMP strikes, human cyber warfare teams sprang into action. They infiltrated hunter systems, sabotaging internal communications, rerouting targeting systems, and implanting false commands. Hunter commanders issued orders that never reached their troops, while others received contradictory messages that threw them into chaos. The hunter fleet began to unravel. The commander watched in disbelief as his once mighty warships, many of which had never tasted defeat, were dismantled like prey. Human ships struck in and out, attacking with deadly bursts. The hunter fleet, built for frontal assaults and overwhelming power, struggled against the nimble maneuvers of the humans. For the first time in generations, they found themselves on the defensive. The commander paced the bridge of his flagship, rage bubbling beneath the surface. How could this be happening? How could a species so small, so seemingly weak, turn the tide? His claws dug into the metal console as reports flooded in. Another cruiser disabled, another ship's engines dead in the water. Panic rippled through the ranks. The commander's eyes narrowed as the realization struck him. The humans had studied them. This was no mere survival instinct. It was something planned. The humans had learned from their past encounters, adapted to the hunter's tactics, and were now employing the hunter's own strategies against them. A chilling revelation gripped him. This battle was not just a defense, it was a trap. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. The hunters were no longer the hunters, they were the hunted. The fleet was disintegrating, ships falling one by one. The humans did not advance in desperation. They moved with lethal intent. Their strategy was clear: dismantle the hunters piece by piece. With each vessel that fell, the balance of power tilted further. The once unstoppable hunter fleet was being torn apart by a species they had barely acknowledged as a threat. The commander's gaze hardened as he watched his forces falter. He had to confront the truth. These humans, these insignificant beings, were not like the others. They had evolved beyond fear, beyond submission, and now they were winning. The realization swept through the hunter ranks. They were losing. Whispers of panic grew louder as ships went dark and escape pods ejected into the cold void of space. There was no glory in this battle, only survival. The hunter fleet, once a symbol of dominance, now teetered on the brink of destruction. For the first time, the commander felt something alien to him: fear. The hunter fleet, once the scourge of the galaxy, found itself in a desperate retreat. The battlefield that had been their playground had transformed into a trap from which they could not escape. Human ships pressed forward with calculated precision, picking off hunter vessels one by one. What had started as a display of dominance for the hunters had devolved into a humiliating defeat. Still reeling from the chaos, the commander made the tough decision to retreat. Continuing the fight would mean certain destruction. His fleet, once unmatched, had been outmaneuvered and outsmarted by a species he had deemed insignificant. With a frustrated growl, he issued the order to fall back. The once proud armada that had terrorized countless civilizations now limped into the void. Human forces stood victorious, their ships and soldiers largely unscathed, a testament to their strategy and discipline. They hadn't triumphed through sheer force but through ingenuity and determination. As the hunter ships faded into the darkness, the reign of fear they had maintained for generations began to shatter. Humanity had achieved what so many others had failed to do. The galaxy took swift notice. Word of the hunters' defeat spread like wildfire. In distant systems where species had once cowered under the threat of the hunter fleet, whispers of hope began to emerge. The humans, once an afterthought in galactic affairs, were now a formidable power. Species that had been oppressed or lived in fear of the hunters began looking to humanity not as prey, but as potential protectors. Some reached out, eager to forge alliances and stand beside the force that had broken the hunters' grip on power. Diplomats and emissaries rushed to establish communications with human leaders, realizing that a new power had risen. Others watched from the sidelines, reassessing their views of humanity. Races that had once scorned humans for their relative weakness now hesitated, realizing they had grossly underestimated them, and it had cost them dearly. If humans could bring down the hunters, what might they do to those who opposed them? Fear of humanity began to spread, not born of terror, but from the realization that these seemingly fragile beings were far more capable and dangerous than anyone had anticipated. Their adaptability and resourcefulness had shattered assumptions and rewritten the balance of power in the galaxy. Within the hunter fleet, the retreat was silent, but the sense of defeat was palpable. The commander, once so confident of his supremacy, gazed into the void, replaying the battle in his mind. The sudden reversals, the precise and unrelenting strikes by the humans. This was no accident. The humans had studied them, understood their tactics, and outsmarted them at every turn. He could no longer deny the painful truth. Humans were not just another weak species to dominate. They were strategic, adaptable, and, worst of all, capable of learning from the mistakes of others. This quality, rare among the galaxy's inhabitants, made them infinitely more dangerous. The commander felt a chill he hadn't known in years: fear. For so long, the hunters had ruled through terror, knowing that no one could match their power. But now, humanity had proven them wrong. He understood with bitter clarity that their reign of fear was ending. The galaxy would no longer tremble at the sight of their fleet. What would replace that fear? Humans, with their unexpected strength and refusal to bend, had shattered the illusion of hunter invincibility. The commander clenched his fists, acknowledging that his empire would never be the same. Back on Earth and throughout human colonies, there was no grand celebration. Humanity had faced a galactic menace and emerged victorious, but they understood the significance of this triumph. This was merely the beginning. They had stepped onto the galactic stage not as victims or survivors, but as equals, perhaps even as a new dominant force. A quiet hum of realization settled in. They had fought not just to survive, but to convey a message. Humanity was here to stay, and they would not be crushed beneath the feet of those who sought to oppress them. Their strength lay not in the size of their fleets or the power of their weapons, but in their capacity to adapt and fight in ways their enemies never anticipated. This ingenuity had carried them through the darkest moments and would continue to guide them as they faced whatever lay ahead. The Hunters had been the first, but they would not be the last. The galaxy now knew what humanity was capable of. As the Hunter fleet retreated into the far reaches of space, the balance of power shifted. Humanity stood triumphant, marking the dawn of a new era. No longer prey, no longer overlooked. They had carved their place among the stars, and the galaxy would never forget what had transpired here. The Hunters had been vanquished, and in their stead, humanity had risen, a force that could not be ignored. The future remained uncertain, but one thing was evident. Humanity was no longer a species to be trifled with. A new chapter in galactic history had begun, and at its center stood a species that had consistently defied the odds and emerged victorious. Humanity's rise was undeniable, and their place among the stars was now assured.